I was in front of the tomb of my father, who would serve as the head of a large business, and upon his death, my brother-in-law Patrick Tuke inherited the business and a staggering $500 million, but I received an old small truck, Patrick sarcastically declared. I've got the good fortune. I have the business and the whole estate under control, and that little truck works for you, but for me, that little truck was more than just a car. I gave it careful attention and saw a destination already set on the navigation system when I turned on the engine. What was this, I wonder? I started to drive while maintaining a tight yet soft grip. Hi everyone, I'm Frank, and I'm 45 years old now, standing in front of a big casket that contains my father's. My connection with my father has always been complex, but he lays in peace. Started a construction company from the ground up, but I decided to take a different route. I left home immediately after college to pursue a career as a teacher, completing a childhood dream. This choice resulted in a lot of contentious debates. And for a while we hardly had my own aspirations and never despised my father, even though we didn't always agree. To follow, and despite my strong sense of duty as the oldest son, I was unable to give them up in order to manage the family business. I felt guilty for not living up to my father's expectations, and this guilt prevented me from. My mother relied on my sister Sophia to keep me informed when I visited my parents' house. Sophia and her spouse would frequently send pricey presents to my father. Might plan excursions for their anniversary or my father's birthday, claiming they were from me. Every time Sophia would wish you and Dad could have a direct conversation. He's just trying to be strong. Encourage me. He must be lonely in his heart. I frequently considered Sophia's remarks and simply shook my head. But one day I received the heartbreaking news that when I learned that my father had cancer, I immediately quit my work and returned to where my family resided. I came to see that life itself was what truly counted, and since our previous disagreements appeared so minor, I made the decision to return to my hometown, work at a nearby school, and initially look after my ailing father. When I returned, my father was surprised, but he silently accepted it, didn't say anything either. I simply remained by his side and assisted him. He would gently thank me whenever he needed it, and those remarks gave me some serenity, but regrettably, my father's battle with his disease came to an end yesterday. A calm chapter in his life came to an end with our mother and I, Sophia, by his side. If we anticipated it, we prayed his soul was at peace even if we couldn't know what he was thinking in his final moments. His passing had a profound impact on my mother, Sophia, and even my small nephew. Everyone in Randy was crying and obviously depressed. The only person who didn't express any emotion was while preparing for the burial. My brother-in-law, Patrick, icily inquired when I heard that he had ultimately passed away. I was pleased with myself for remaining composed and instead of responding furiously to Patrick, I concentrated on organizing the funeral for my father. I ignored Patrick's harsh criticism since it kept me occupied and helped me forget about the hurt. Remarks then ensured that Patrick and I had everything prepared for the burial. Never got along, and as time went on, our relationship just became worse. But despite everything, I maintained my concentration throughout this difficult period. When I first met Patrick was a highly competent employee in my father's business. I felt as though I had acquired a biological sibling at the age of 5 when Patrick wed my sister Sophia, older than me, and appeared to be a role model prior to Patrick and Sophia's married. I frequently sought his counsel on a variety of issues, and he was always receptive. Knowing this, one of our main conversations was over whether or not I ought to work for Patrick's family firm. Frank, you should lead your own life, as no one else understands your route. Which decisions are the finest in life? Therefore, making decisions you won't regret later is crucial. Inspired by what he said, I left business school to pursue my studies, management to the education faculty, where I was eager to study at the time. Patrick and Sophie were married, and they began a 22-year life together. Have gone by since then, and my father and I are now farther apart. I missed the opportunity to heal that gap and moved on with my life, but when I learned about when my father became ill, I left everything behind and hurried home, where Patrick had once welcomed me. His warmth toward me had shifted, and he now appeared uneasy in my presence while we were when you heard he was alone. Patrick would icily remark, "You came back in a hurry." "You were unwell, weren't you? But you won't inherit anything." Anything he said surprised me, and I found it difficult to react. What do you think? Don't pretend as though you're unaware that it could be a coincidence, but even if you desire to manage the business, and the next leader has already been chosen, I was stunned by Patrick's harsh remarks, and I responded louder than I meant to. No, that's not it. I realized I hadn't been a good son and decided not to return for the company. Even though it's late, I wanted to apologize to Dad because Patrick rejected me, and I don't need your pretentious speech. Sounds like something from a television drama, and Sophia likes that type of thing. Wonderful things, but were all of those presents you sent merely to appear admirable in front of? I clarified, but Patrick had already stated that was false. Made up his mind and showed no interest in accepting what I said. Like a slight to Sophia, and I experienced a profound rift for the first time between since that episode. I've been incredibly angry with Patrick because he starts to publicly make fun of me despite your best efforts to win him over. Time has gone by. Go back to where you belong and take care of your problems instead of making me laugh. He would tell the students that initially I gave careful consideration to how I came across to other people and how they perceived me, but Patrick's remarks revealed that his self-interest outweighed our father's actions. Appeared disrespectful to his father-in-law and his wife, Sophia I, on a regular basis. Began to think that Patrick had wed Sophia primarily to gain access to my father's business and fortune, which he rarely didn't assist in taking care of my father when he was ill. Now, all I could do was put in as much effort as possible to save the business my father had established. Although Patrick usually sounded professional, his true motivation was to stay out of trouble. He would go play golf on the weekends, saying it was for work, although he rarely stated that he wants his son to acquire a variety of abilities to eventually take over the company. But he left all of the housework and drove when Sophia expressed some displeasure over this. Patrick will fervently grasp her hand and declare, "I'm doing everything I can for him. Now is the time to yield results, so let's get through this trial by all means necessary." Sophia found it difficult to confront him together and typically merely nodded. Even Patrick was skilled at playing the ideal husband, even as she appeared hesitant. It's hardly surprising that Sophia believed him when he revealed his actual self in front of her. To me, most likely because he believed I was similar to him, I gradually adapted Toy, wasn't very bothered by Patrick's jeering. But when my father died, I was devastated, really upset, and emptiness despite Patrick's apparent distress about our father's deteriorating health felt as though he had been waiting for this moment. And this notion made me feel very furious and depressed after Patrick received the majority of our father's substantial fortune after his death. Even though he was my son-in-law, my father's law gave him the same inheritance rights as Sophia and me. Will he receive a large amount of riches and the majority of the company's shares? Despite being my father's child, an unexpected turn of events left me stunned. I had assumed that the inheritance would be divided equally between the biological children, the three of us, but Patrick ended up getting practically everything, and all I got was Aunt Patrick seems taken aback by the ancient little truck my father used to like in public. Boothie said, "You came all the way from the city to this, while laughing by himself with me." What a cruel conclusion. The small town took care of Dad day and night, and all you got was this little truck. I own the business, and all you have left as an inheritance is this little truck. It's like a humor as he grinned and walked out of the room. I felt hollow inside while clutching the penny tightly gripping the vehicle keys. The icy metal forced me to confront the unpleasant truth that my family tried to lift my spirits, but he didn't mean to. "Keep your head up, Dad. I'm sorry, but that truck was Dad's favorite car, and he always adored it." Despite their good remarks, I was too hurt to reply, "But he clearly cared about you." Realize that a father's love is not measured by what you inherit, but rather by the fact that Patrick appeared to be waiting for my father to pass away. Nearly everything was insulting. Wasn't about the cash, but rather the anguish of witnessing my father's labors go to such a man. I clutched the vehicle key, feeling helpless to alter the situation. Made the decision to maintain the small truck, which was the sole item my father had left me. Seemed to have a deeper significance, so I thought cleaning the truck would be beneficial. Sort out my emotions, I used a hose to gently wash the truck before sitting in. My father used to sit in the driver's seat and start the engine. Saw that the navigation system was displaying an audit. Strange why there is only one thick blue path rather than just displaying my location. I questioned whether the navigation system had a destination set. When I checked, it usually only occurs when a certain route is being used. The screen's destination simply displayed coordinates rather than a precise location. It would take roughly, and I didn't think I'd want to take a drag in the tiny truck, but it took an hour. After giving it some thought, I shifted into first gear and departed the house. An hour later, I came onto what appeared to be a house on a pleasant drive. I was surprised to see a tiny, unassuming cottage that was so different from Bimini hometown's larger homes were cozy and welcoming. The neighborhood was peaceful and unable to hear or see anyone else. So I exited the truck and stood in feeling a little lost in the front of the house because there were no signs to what this location was, but I felt as though the GPS system had led me here for a reason. So I rang when the door slowly opened and the doorbell rang. I saw the last person my mother asked, "Why are you here?" As I was expecting Frank to enter, I said, "Mom, why was this location in Dad's navigation system?" She followed her and said, "Explain everything, but first come inside and relax." Inside, I discovered a modest yet comfortable space with only my mother's necessities. Brewed some tea and began to calmly explain that this was truly I'm pretty sure I've never heard of Dad having a hidden hideout. I was shocked when she told me that this location is our secret hangout. If we ever had a minor fight, we came here for some peace and quiet or when we needed our own space. You were unaware of our regulation to come here and cool off, were you? I was stunned and lost in contemplation, she added. I had no idea such a family rule existed. Additionally, your father wanted you to say this because she gave me a brown package that appeared to be somewhat swollen. I chose to read the letter that was addressed to me since it included crucial information. Frank, I've gotten you into a lot of problems and put you through terrible things. I sincerely apologize from the bottom of my heart for the years that the letter was filled with. With my father's thoughts on his previous errors and his sincere appreciation for he wrote to me. Your mother frequently tells me that you left home on your own volition. We are both obstinate, and a son has the right to follow his own course in life. But it was a nice surprise for me when you returned after I became unwell. Despite the fact that I struggle to articulate my emotions, I am incredibly appreciative of you because the concept of family support was new to me. Beautiful words from my father, and the letter also made me feel quite emotional, stated Patrick to be honest, and as time went on, my anger for him increased. He had a gift for language and made others feel at ease, but I could sense his actual character and suspected that he was cunning. His actions around the house were an attempt to assert his ownership, and I too exhausted from work and looking after you all to notice his crafty behavior, yet knowing Patrick as I do now, I think the letter confirmed my thoughts. Added, I don't plan to give you the company, but if something unforeseen circumstances, I have left your mother a sizable sum of money to make sure that you end after I finish reading the letter. Please understand that Sophia won't need it. My mother stared at the brown packet I reached without saying anything. Forward and verified that everything was in my mother's possession. Name, she started talking sternly. If I move the accounts to you and according to tax regulations, Sophia's names would qualify as a gift if they were included in will. Patrick might attempt to steal the money that your father gave me. In order to prevent Patrick from interfering, I wanted to deliver it to him in secret while he was still alive. Sophia told me that you and Sophia are a living gift, but I was still attempting to comprehend the entire effect of the amount recorded in the account book. She showed me something enormous that I had never seen before, so having a lot of money before, I was really grateful that my dad had left me this. Because of the sum, but also because it demonstrated that Dad truly cared about me, not only Patrick, who was considered to be his heir. This really moved me. We didn't often exchange strong emotions, but I knew he always had a great concern for us, and I want to thank you for everything I gave your mother. He previously stated, I am sincerely grateful for all the gifts you have given me. I was so overcome with emotion that I couldn't contain the tears that were flowing down my face. For a while, I thought my father didn't truly get me, but I was totally incorrect. He always appreciated and understood me, which is most likely why he trusted me with that vintage small truck, knowing that I would take good care of it. I expressed my sincere regret to Mom, saying, I wish I could have done more for Dad. However, my mother reassured me with a kind grin, as if she understood that although it's normal to feel that you could have done more during obvious sadness, you were his biggest source of happiness and love, Father. Hearing Pride's comments brought me to tears once more, but they also motivated me to make Kay firmly believed that I would not allow my father's business to be acquired by someone like Patrick, who Hattie chose to subtly oppose and devise a meticulous plan because I wanted for his death. Without informing Patrick that I had won a sizable fortune, the first step was to contact my father's business leaders to gain their support. They consented to support my wish to continue my father's legacy. Responses demonstrated that my father had never disparaged me. In the meantime, in order to divert Patrick's focus from me throughout the will reading, my mother and sister behaved calmly, kept acting in the same manner around Patrick, giving him the impression that he had succeeded, and he denigrated me with arrogance. Do you still wish to stay in poverty after being abandoned by your father? He mocked. I'm the new president. Now admit your defeat and stay in this house. Patrick would wave his hand dismissively and say, go back home. As I've since taking over as CEO, he has been swatting away Patrick's haughty demeanor. Despite his high status, he caused tension in the workplace, neglected his responsibilities, and treated his employees rudely, which led to numerous issues, and many talented workers quit because they were dissatisfied with his leadership. But Patrick didn't ask his strategy and remained overconfident with people who were unable to understand my in public. Superior vision might as well resign right away. As the company's issues grew, Patrick liked making choices without consulting anybody else. When I first met him, his enthusiasm for the business seemed to fade as he spent money and lived a luxury lifestyle. How had he changed so much? He seemed like a wonderful person, competent, and even my dad liked him. My mother wept every night, but I was unable to keep the kids from seeing it. As I watched the business fail, I was secretly preparing my next course of action for the day. Arrived when I pretended to have gone home and waited for Patrick at the office when he entered the president's office and was taken aback to discover me seated there. Get this individual out of here. What the devil are you doing? Why are you sitting there? Here, he asked. Are you the one who should be leaving? I calmly answered, what are Patrick? Are you talking about having gone insane? At me as though I were a bothersome bug making use of the resources our father left us, held an extraordinary general meeting and purchased the majority of the company's shares. A shareholders was held, and Patrick, you are formally dismissed as president. I apologize, but you are no longer the company's president. Hold on a second, he stumbled. Do you not see that I now have control? I'm bewildered and repeating sentences that don't make sense. You believe the inheritance was merely an old Mini, but 2/3 of this company's shares struck, but Patrick attempted to use the truck to unexpectedly turn it into money. Examine the hideaway specifics, but I steered clear of his inquiries and modified the topic that simply exacerbated his annoyance. The game is over, go out of here. I gently informed him right away and gave him a number of documents as Patrick looked. His face turned white as he said, what are these? These are the minutes from this additional document and the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders. Arié gave Patrick the explanation for your firing notice, and he grew furious and crumpled. He said, you think this will hold up? I'll take legal action while holding papers. Proceed with the legal action, we have excellent justifications for it. Gently replied, why have you only been after the old man's money? And let me ask you this. This company has always been nothing more than jealousy, as Patrick claimed. Patrick, have you been utilizing business resources for your own personal benefit? When executing rental agreements for your personal gain, I inquired as to what would happen if I had. Patrick said, what's it to you? His face going white with surprise. How did you understand that? He stumbled when I enumerated his transgressions, such as taking home. Patrick found it difficult to react to computers and other devices used for business purposes. The TV and laptops that belong in the office are being used at home. Forey desperately pressed on Patrick, but personal matters aren't a valid enough excuse to act that way. Attempted self-defense. How did you find out about that? His lips quivered as he inquired, but I kept my eyes on him and went on. Ought to have been more conscious of your obligations. Did you grow complacent when you believed you? In charge of everything? I had been learning about Patrick's activities taken by the company's executives following the death of our father. Patrick grew more conceited. Previously, he would at least appear to appreciate people, but as president, he started to delegate his duties to others and even doze off in his workplace because of this mindset. Prompted a large number of devoted workers who held my father in high regard to quit in frustration. Because of his actions, Patrick, who was outraged about the circumstance, questioned my capacity to handle, highlighting the fact that I couldn't possibly perform the duties of a manager considering that you have never worked a day at this company. How can someone it's challenging to become president without any prior business management experience? Patrick stated that you're entirely correct and I trust management to someone like you. Acknowledged that I don't intend to take over as president of this company. In fact, a new president has sent you a symbolic message in this chair. Been chosen by an alternative board of directors and is now doing their duties. Patrick was in a state of shock, standing there with his eyes and mouth gaping. He was taken aback by the sudden change in circumstances and had been certain that I was pursuing the presidency and had plans to succeed him. But as I stated repeatedly, I'm not. My sole objective after becoming president is to defend and honor my father. I clarified the business he dedicated his life to creating, asking why anyone would think such a fancy. Patrick shot back, saying he believed I was just interested in the money and prestige that came from our after I responded. Patrick shook in rage for a moment because his father didn't see his actual value. Minute but then calmed down. Do you believe that this is over and that you can simply laughed and hurry out of the president's office that evening? Unexpectedly, Sophia tossed divorce papers at Patrick, which led to their marriage, which resulted from his misbehavior at work and his final dismissal. The new president was selected from the group of directors who felt that they valued my father and were committed to preserving what he had achieved. My mother and sister agreed that the company should be run by someone who would carry on my father's legacy. Sophie was getting ready as I worked with the attorneys to arrange Patrick's termination. On the day she brought up the divorce, her anguished voice filled the house. Why do you turn away from me now, in such a somber atmosphere? Because you no longer care about me, Patrick, and I no longer hold the position of president. With a composed yet forceful manner, Sophia answered, there's no point. Speaking about treachery, you were the one who violated our bond by at first. Your affection was for the president's title rather than for me. Daughter, you disregarded our house, did not assist in raising our kids, and displayed no regard for our ailing father, and you ultimately attempted to seize everything from him for yourself. Now is the moment for you to deal with the consequences. Patrick failed to reply to. According to Sophia, she had suffered greatly over her children's futures and the company's destiny, but fortunately our father's fortune provided her with a strong financial foundation. After the divorce, we planned to live a quiet life apart in order to raise her kids. Our only worry stemming from disagreements with our mother and sister was the potential for reprisal from Patrick, but he had already run out of money after suffering significant losses. Was even in debt after falling victim to an investment scam that featured a man posing as Patrick was persuaded to work for a brokerage firm that was actually a scammer. By a lot of words were missed in this scenario, demonstrating how people can take advantage of. Patrick was experiencing the financial hardships of folks who suddenly have a lot of money. Repercussions of his behavior. In the interim, I spent rewarding days caring for my mother. I continued to work as a tutor and lived a quiet, comfortable existence. In addition to school, my mother and I enjoyed taking care of my nephew Randy, who was quite fond of us, and when I grew up, his presence brought joy to our everyday lives. Grandpa Randy said, I'm going to be president like him. His comments were full of this made us smile with the purity of youthful fantasies, and Sophia and I shared knowing glances that even brought my mother to tears. You may think that smiles convey warmth and understanding right now, yet he gently teased him, thinking about how I wouldn't be shocked if you wanted to become a teacher when you were in college. Comparable previous remarks that made everyone chuckle, but I'm not very skilled at. Maybe I won't be a good teacher because I'm studying, he replied gravely. Furrowing his sincerity made this even more charming and led to additional laughter. This moment was filled with love, and there was a strong feeling of excitement, realizing that we were savoring our family unity and living in the now.